How's it going, guys? Joshua Gibson here with the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast. This is episode 8, and I'm joined today by none other than the coach, Glenn Pendlay. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing good.
For people not to know who you are, they have to be living under a rock or maybe in some foreign country that's extremely tiny and they don't have internet service. So for those people, maybe you can just give a brief introduction of who you are, your background, and whatever you find kind of relevant to the conversation.
Well, I'm a weightlifting coach. I've been doing or coaching sport weightlifting for over 20 years. I like to think I'm a decent coach, but I'm still learning. I always think if you're not learning, you're regressing. So I'm still trying to figure stuff out. And I have a slightly different take on the whole training and getting stronger, that stuff like that, but then a lot of people do. But, it's what's worked for me so far. And I've been reasonably successful, I guess, in coaching. And that's kind of what's led me to believe that my way of doing things might be, if not better than anybody else, at least okay. It works.
Sure. So you've been really successful as a coach, and I know you were an athlete. So can you give us a little bit of information about your athletic background?
Well, I'll tell you that right now, I wasn't near as good an athlete as I'm a coach. I always like to preface that by saying I'm very proud of what I've done to coach, but as an athlete, I was one of those athletes that works their butt off and does okay. There's never going to not have the talent to be a superstar, Mm-hmm. I'm very lucky that I had a decent amount of talent as far as getting strong, but I was never athletic. I was never able to take the strength and turn it into big cleans and jerks and snatches like a lot of people do. So I was just way stronger than I had to be for the amount of weight I was lifting and weightlifting stuff. I did do powerlifting first because I come from a small town in Kansas, McPherson, Kansas. That town's been about 12 or 13,000 people forever. Small farming community, and I didn't know what weightlifting was. I'd never heard of weightlifting. I'd never seen someone do a snatch. When I was growing up, I had no clue. So I got bit by the bug of getting stronger pretty early in life. In fact, I welded together my first squat rack when I was like 14. But my grandpa built my first weightlifting bar, and I dug my first squat rack was dug with post holes in the ground when I was like 10 or 12. So I was out in the backyard squatting using pegs and 2 different post holes that I dug. And I loved getting stronger. I was one of those weird kids that just really falls in love with the whole process of getting stronger. I'm still like that today. I absolutely love strength and getting stronger. The process, from an intellectual standpoint, it's one of the hardest things you can try to do. It's very, very difficult. Very difficult.
Right.
And I've been in love with that ever since was very young. And since I didn't know what weightlifting was, we had no access to weightlifting. I started out in powerlifting. I wrestled in high school and a little bit in college. And then when I went to college, I got bitten by the powerlifting bug because that was what made you strong. And I ended up being a decent powerlifter. I think that was time well spent. But I was way better as a powerlifter than I was as a weightlifter. It's like I said, I have a certain amount of talent for getting strong, but no athletic ability to turn that strength into a big snatch, for instance. And so I eventually did decent lifts in powerlifting, but powerlifting was the biggest thing powerlifting did for me took me to the 1992 Junior Worlds, where I met Alexander Medvedev. He was a Russian coach, the Soviet Union coach for like 20, 30 years, the head coach. And he was one fantastic person for me to meet. I ended up staying in Moscow for a little while and actually training under him, which was a great experience. Great experience. He's dead now, but I was very lucky to meet him while he was alive, and very lucky to, he does little things for me, like gave me several copies of his books on weightlifting, which are in Russian language, of course, but I still have them, I can't read them. I don't read Russian, but I still have them. That was a very, very cool thing. But he's the first one that taught me how to snatch, taught me how to clean jerk. Basically gave me, through an interpreter, of course, his view of how you should train for weightlifting. And I was really intrigued with the science aspect of the training. And that's the first I'd ever uncovered the fact that science is a big part of this. The whole process of getting the human body to adapt, it'll get stronger, more explosive, et cetera, is very sciencey, And that caused me to go home to Kansas State University, immediately change my major from education major to physiology major. And so that's my total life ever since. So my life has been centered around weightlifting since that meeting of Medvedev. I immediately switched from powerlifting to weightlifting. And, that brings us back to today. I actually went to a few more powerlifting meets for the simple reason that after doing powerlifting for a couple years, I'm getting to, at least a fairly good place in powerlifting, where I was not embarrassingly weak. I didn't want to switch before I reached a couple goals. I'd had several goals like squatting 800, bench pressing 500, et cetera, but I felt like I was close, and it would be a shame to retire from powerlifting before I met those goals. And so that was me just wanting to achieve something, something I worked for a while, not wanting to leave something undone. So I eventually did that, but I started training for weightlifting as soon as I got back from Moscow, and I started doing things like, for the deadlift, I would do clean pulls for deadlift. My second bench press workout would be push presses, So I started working in the weightlifting type movements, assistance movements, as soon as I got back home. And so they kind of let me break over into weightlifting from powerlifting gently, Took me a few years to really make the switch totally, but I knew what I wanted to do. After I got back from Moscow, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I wanted to do. I feel like after having met him and starting to learn how to snatch, learn how to clean jerk, that whole process, I felt like right there, my whole life unfolded in front of me.
Right.
I knew from the start that was going to be my whole life. And I'm pretty lucky because I've been able to work what is my love in life, which is weightlifting, into making a living, ever since. And I feel very lucky on that. Very lucky about that.
So I have a question. As someone that does coach powerlifters, and they kind of see myself and a few of my other lifters performing the weightlifting movements, how would you recommend they make that switch if they ever kind of desired to, since you had to go through it yourself?
Well, I think kind of how I did. I did every powerlifter does, most powerlifters at least, do 2 bench press workouts a week, most of them. I did that when I was a powerlifter. I benched twice a week. And what I did was I took one of those workouts and devoted it to vertical press, push press, and military press. The other workout I just kept bench pressing, but I started immediately having one press workout and then one bench press workout. That took care of the bench press, and it's kind of funny, but my push press really got fairly strong quickly. It didn't take a lot to convert the bench press strength to a push press. And I've noticed that in a lot of other lifters that I've coached. They could, as long as they're still benching, it's probably not going to completely catch up. When some it does, and some actually goes past their bench press strength. But for the jerk, just push press, learn to push press, learn to dip and drive correctly, and start working a push press. That kind of takes care of it. And most guys that have a decent bench eventually can jerk more than they can bench pretty quickly. It doesn't take forever. Then for the squat, make this just a high bar. That's pretty much it. Squat is good for everyone. There's no one that didn't squat. No one that shouldn't squat. Squat's kind of a universal. If you want to get strong, if you want to be strong and athletic, you have to squat. You have to squat. And so the only difference was I just switched to high bar. And at first, I high barred in the off season. I high barred like for the first 8 weeks of training cycle, say, I'd low bar. In the last 3 weeks, getting towards the meet, I'd high bar, or towards the weightlifting meet, I'd high bar. Mm-hmm. And if I was going to a powerlifting meet, I'd low bar. So I kind of switched it around a little bit first, but eventually I all high bar. The funny thing about high bar squats is, if you get your high bar squat up, it will increase the low bar squat. The reverse is not always true. Mm-hmm. Low bar squat didn't always convert to high bar, but high bar will always convert to low bar very easily. And so I think actually Fred Houtfield agrees with me about this. I don't even think he knows who I am probably, but he feels the same way. He's always said that you should high bar up until a few weeks before a meet, then start working the low bar back in.
Okay.
And he's a pretty smart guy, and that's how he kind of advised people trying to squat. The high bar to get stronger, low bar to learn how to do it in a powerlifting meet, which I think works pretty well. Mm-hmm. And then there's deadlift. All the clean pulls and snatch pulls you're going to be doing will affect deadlift. I don't think that weightlifters really need to train deadlift because we do so much pulling. Okay. I think that your average lifter should be strong on all 5 lifts. Sorry. You should be strong on all. I've done a couple. Well, we're going to do a super total meet here in McPherson here pretty soon, which is snatch, clean, jerk, day 1, day 2, bench press, deadlift, squat. Okay. I wish more people did that. It's fun. Very fun. A lot of work, but it's fun.
Sure. And just kind of going back a little bit, you touched on your education a bit. I understand that you got your master's at Wichita Falls. I got my undergrad at Kansas State, and my undergrad was in physiology, and in my master's, I started at Montana State. Okay. And that was at that time when I was kind of switching back and forth between weightlifting and powerlifting, knowing that I wanted to weightlift eventually, but I still had to get the numbers I wanted in powerlifting because I just didn't want to leave it undone, you know. And I'm very glad I did now. Because I'm never going to be that strong again. So obviously I'm glad I achieved some decent numbers before getting old and weak. But my master's, I started at Montana and didn't go very well in Montana. My wife was up there. She wanted to come home. And I eventually just said, I'm just going to quit the master's program and go to work for a while, make some money, and didn't come back to school. So that's what I did. I came home to Kansas. I worked in a family business for a while. Then eventually I said, I got to get back to school and finish my master's. So I moved down to Texas again. I'm back to Texas and finished my master's with Dr. Kilgore, who is a wonderful guy. Very good weightlifter, very smart guy. He was the chair of my master's committee. He's a guy that's influenced me a lot. He's one of the people that influenced me the most of anyone in the world. He's a very, very good guy. And so my relationship with him has always been very good. And could you maybe explain some of the research that you did there, or maybe some studies that you would have been interested in doing if you could have?
Well, the research I did there was all hormonal based. Because that was, the good thing about Kilgore was that he wanted me to be able to do anything I wanted. Mm-hmm. So if I would have been interested in cardiac, he would have done a master's degree based on cardiac stuff. But of course I was interested in strength and weightlifting. And so we developed a couple of studies and looking into weightlifting, the joys of training. And the thing I was interested in was, this is something that's not been said very much, but using the body's reaction to training stress to design a peaking program. Mm-hmm. Because there's several people, basically the Finnish Norwegian researchers, and several have done, Comey, Heikkinen, they've done a lot of studies on how overreaching occurs, how to use that for getting stronger. So there's a certain thing that happens in the body is if you say you're on a 4-week cycle, body takes a week or two to adapt. Well, not a 4-week cycle, play an 8-week cycle. Then it takes a couple weeks to have really hard training, and eventually your testosterone to cortisol ratio declines. Then you back off training, and it recovers. Now, I had looked at every study that had been done on TC ratio and how it reacts to training stress. And a lot of the studies seem to point towards the fact that if you had the TC ratio decrease, but not too much, then allow it to recover and go to supernormal, supercompensate, that was very positive for eventual training progress. So I kind of developed a decision tree that helped me and the lifters that I was coaching try to get the TC ratio to be depressed by a certain amount, then recover by the end of the cycle. We found that if it was depressed the first week, but not enough, we'd increase the stress a little bit, increase the number of volume, the lifts you did. And then if it was decreased too much, we decrease the number you did. Basically trying to manipulate the TC ratio to follow the perfect profile. And we were very successful at that. And also we'd found that, in the process of this, we found that if the TC ratio decreased, but not by more than 10%, and then it was allowed to recover completely and supercompensate, that correlated to increases in your total very, very highly. So it was a correlation of an R value of like 0.99 or something.
Oh, wow.
Not 98, something like that. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was very, very, very good correlation.
So hearing this, if we're looking at this practically in the gym, knowing we can't get those blood tests to measure, what kind of signs would the athletes show to make sure that they're on track with this slight decrease, but not over the top?
Well, I'm not 100% sure of that.
Mm-hmm.
The fun thing I do know is that to get the TC ratio to decrease took an unbelievable amount of work.
Mm-hmm.
An unbelievable amount of work. And the athletes, when they were in that stage where that related progress, had TC ratio go down by 8%, say, they felt like death. They felt like death. I mean, you'd have people who were walking upstairs or saying, I can't get up the stairs. There's no way I can train today. No way. And it was kind of almost funny because we had, there were 8 athletes doing a study, and they were all weightlifters that at least competed at collegiate nationals. So they all had competed in a national meet. So it wasn't just freshman gym students,
Mm-hmm.
It was actual weightlifters. Which I think it's one of the only studies ever that's been done on weightlifters in the U.S. It's not that many of us, or at least it didn't used to be. But their complaints were, over the top. Like there's no way I can do the bar. No way. You have people sitting down on a bench and saying, I can't stand up. And I just had to say, please try the bar. Just try to snatch it. If you can't do it, okay, but at least try it. I know it hurts, but try it. Then we repeat that process with 20 kilos, 40 kilos, 50 kilos. Every single step along the way, we'd have to beg them to do the lift. Please try this lift. This is 5 more kilos than last time. Just try it. And it's kind of funny, but once they get up, eventually, say there's a 100 kilo snatcher,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times they PR. Say snatch 95, and say, I can't do 101. Please try. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. We'd beg them and plead with them. And they'd try it, and they'd make it. And that repeated itself over and over and over again. And everyone got stronger. But it was a chore,
Sure.
to get to the point that what should actually related to progress. If I hadn't have been the person that was going to determine if they got a passing grade, it wouldn't have happened. Because part of what they signed up for was finishing it, you know? I mean, it was down to threatening people, you know? It was seriously difficult to make them stay the course. And I've never experienced something like that in my life, where people actually PR'd the same day they were begging not to have to walk.
Right.
Saying they couldn't climb stairs, they had to. Like saying, if I had to walk a flight of stairs right now to get out of fire, I just burned to death because I couldn't do it. And then they PR'd. I don't know how, but they did. But it kind of opened my eyes to that, among other things. It opened my eyes to how hard people can work if they want to.
So
your body's capable of a lot more than you think it is.
Right. So how do you get people?
It's all a shame that most people don't have the chance to figure that out.
Right. And how do you get people to buy in when you know that you can push them to that breaking point and then pull back just enough? How do you get people to buy in that you're not going to like overtrain them or push them too hard?
It's hard. It's hard. Weightlifting is a hard sport, and it takes a lot of work. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're not great at weightlifting. Because to actually make progress, for most people, it requires that they almost put their life on the line. It's like that's what it feels like. And there are places in the world where people will push themselves inhumanly hard to eat. You know, like if you're staying at the training center in, say, Bulgaria in 1970, you're getting 3 good meals a day. If you get sent home, your life is very different. Right. You might not eat. You know, and that's some of the thing that we don't get to experience. The actual life and death struggle. We're just kind of too insulated from that. Right. Did you notice? It's kind of funny. Bud Charniga told me something. Or actually, he wrote this in a book or pamphlet or something. But it's something I read from him. I don't think he told me personally, but I read from him. He said that as soon as indoor air conditioning becomes the norm, that's it for weightlifting. That's the last time that'll be good. I think the reason is as soon as a country reaches a level of affluence, where living is easy, you know, you're not on a jagged edge anymore. You're advanced enough in the country where you have indoor air conditioning. That's the norm. People lose that edge. You know, they lose that edge. They lose that life and death situation. And it's kind of crazy, but it almost has to be life and death. You got to convince yourself of life and death to push yourself hard enough to actually make real progress. And I know you're a big fan of having athletes having training partners. Do you think that competition kind of helps drive the training? It's impossible without it. Impossible without it. You simply can't go into a basement at home and push yourself hard enough day after day, week after week to be good. Can't be done. Yeah. I don't think so, anyways. And have you noticed a difference between genders, so men or women, and then age groups, and how hard they're willing to push themselves during training? I think too many times people figure out how hard they need to work and how hard they can work after they're already too old for it to matter. Yeah. I will say that women can usually work harder than men by a fair amount. Physically, they can just stand more volume and more stress than men can and adapt to it. But I think that for a lot of people, sometime in their 30s, they say, I wish I'd known this when I was 20. You know, I wish I'd known how hard I could go when I was 20. And to tell the truth, that's kind of one of the things that I think is one of the chief concerns. Oh, wait a second. I'm saying that wrong. That's one of the chief advantages of a coach.
Mm-hmm.
The coach is there to tell you what is possible and say, if you just try again, just push a little harder, do one more set of squats, put 5 more kilos on a bar, et cetera, et cetera. That's what the coach is for. So you as a coach, hopefully, have been there before. And you can say, I felt what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly how you feel. You got to get under that 500-pound bar again for another set of squats, and you're going to feel like you're going to have fight or flight syndrome here. You're going to feel like your life's on the line, trying to stand up with that 5th rep. I know how that feels. I know exactly how that feels. I've done it before. But you can make it.
Right.
And that's one of the chief advantages of a coach. You don't need to have a coach that's been where you've been, that knows their way around a bar, experience the same things you're experiencing. They can tell you, you know, and that's one of the biggest advantages of a coach. So you've been there before. You made mistakes yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's one of the things that it's one of my biggest frustrations with certain athletes is that I feel like if you're going to make the same damn mistakes I made, what use am I to you?
Right.
You know, the coach is there because he's made the mistakes already. And he can say, don't make the same mistakes I made. You know, you need to rest or you need to work harder, something like that. You just even tell them. But if you're not going to listen to a coach who has done it before you have and learn from their mistakes, that's the biggest thing an athlete should learn to do is learn not only from your mistakes, because you only learn from your own mistakes. If you only learn from your own mistakes, you're going to be, again, you're going to be another person that is too late.
Right.
You're going to know how to train after you've already missed the boat. You know, when you're 35, it's too late. If it takes you 10 years to learn how to train and you start at age 25, you're never going to be good. So you've got to learn how to train and learn what it takes when you're still young enough to matter.
Okay, so I have a question.
If you learn that at 20, it matters, you know?
Right.
If you don't learn it until 35, it doesn't matter.
So I have a question then. You're talking about athletes being able to learn from your mistakes. What would you say is your biggest mistake as a coach, or one that kind of sticks out through the years of your coaching?
Well, one of them is chasing strength.
Mm-hmm.
You know, chasing strength when I was already strong enough. I was strong, like in a big squat, big push press. When I needed to be doing more things that had to do with footwork, you know,
right,
like jerk drills, et cetera, et cetera. But it took me a while to figure out that squatting 50 more pounds wasn't going to help me at all.
Right.
So just working what needed to be worked and not working strength too much. That's one of the things that's a big mistake for me. Another mistake I think I made is not doing enough workouts. I think that towards the end of my career as a lifter, I had fixed that, you know, but I wish that I had known that I had the ability to do 2-3 workouts a day when I was 20. My God, I could have done it so much better. But I didn't know. I didn't have any clue. I didn't have any clue. And so it wasn't until I was probably in my 30s that I really figured out and I could do 2 workouts a day or 3. You know?
Yeah.
It took me a long time. If I could go back and tell my 18-year-old self to do that, I would have been better.
Right.
And, or tell my 18-year-old self to back off sometimes. When you're young, no one wants to back off. Training cannot be the same. And too many people, they have a certain amount of training they're comfortable with. You know, a certain amount of volume per week, workouts per week, whatever you're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And the object of training is to be uncomfortable. Okay? Sometimes do too much. If you're used to doing 200 reps a week, do 300 one week. Then do less, you know? Mm-hmm. So you've got to do more to cause adaptation, then do less to allow recuperation. But too many people, and I think I did this as for a time, and it was one of the biggest mistakes I made. If you're comfortable with, say, 200 reps a week, you keep doing that again and again and again. That does not get you anywhere. It's got to be 250 one week, then 150 the next week.
Mm-hmm.
A little too much, a little not enough, you know? So it change.
Okay. And switching gears a little bit, kind of your coaching style, how would you characterize it in terms of how you program? I mean, obviously you have a big strength influence, and I know you've kind of written about your relationship with the West Side. Maybe you can just give us some insight into your kind of your philosophy on that.
Well, the biggest thing that I think that is a difference from me to somebody else, say, another weightlifting coach, I believe that you should separate individuals into pretty much 3 different distinct groups.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all 3 of them are going to train very, very differently. Too many people always want to be in the middle. We've kind of just talked about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But people are beginners. No one wants to be called a beginner. But when you're a beginner, you need to train like a beginner. Everyone, when they're 18, wants to say, I'm advanced, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And they want to do too much. But a beginner is the point at which you can make the fastest progress. If you'll just slow down and do the beginner program. The beginner program is for somebody who is making noticeable progress from workout to workout. So, for instance, if you were able to squat 100 kilos for a set of 5 this workout, then next workout, do 101 kilos for a set of 5, and so on and so forth. That's a beginner. If you're able to snatch 50 kilos this workout, that says 52 the next workout, that's fine. That's a beginner. Mm-hmm. But the reason that you should not have a problem with being called a beginner is that that's people that make fastest progress. You'll never make progress like that again. But a beginner has to be treated very differently from an intermediate or advanced lifter. A beginner's whole workout, you'll do every cup of training, every workout. So you'll do some snatching, some strength work, some leg strength work, some pressing work, et cetera, every workout. Every workout is a self-contained training program, basically. Then an intermediate. Intermediates are people that make noticeable progress from week to week. An intermediate lifter every week will be a whole training program, basically. So you'll do, at the start of the week, higher volume weightlifting stuff and higher volume strength stuff. At the end of the week, you'll do higher volume strength stuff or higher intensity strength stuff and higher intensity weightlifting stuff. But every week kind of operates its own mini cycle. Now, I think that's probably where most people need to train. And I can say I do online programming, and most people that I'm coaching right now are intermediates. Mm-hmm. Then advanced is a person that has to separate the training and training cycles. So this is a person that is going to take, say, let's just say, for instance, 8 weeks to make noticeable progress. So every training cycle is distinct. Training cycle starts higher volume, ends higher intensity. Advanced is people probably like James Tatum, Travis Cooper, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Good lifters, you know, people that have been national champions, you know, people that are not really going up very fast at all. Maybe they're still able to make a kilo or 2 here and there every couple of training cycles, but they're not changing from workout to workout like a beginner is. So I think that is the basis of how I coach and how I program. And I think that's pretty much one of the things that kind of sets me apart from a lot of coaches, because that's kind of how I do things.
Okay. And would you have any recommended resources for coaches listening to this podcast so they can get some more insight into how you coach and maybe what other effective methods are?
Well, I am in the middle of a book that will be done at some point. And so hopefully at some point you can buy that. But I think that although Louie has put out a lot of stuff, most of it's geared towards powerlifting. But if you take the powerlifting out of it and try to apply the ideas to weightlifting, I think it's very good for weightlifting. Mm-hmm. Weightlifters seem to hate Louie for some reason. I don't know why. It's like they're vampires in Louie's garlic. You know? They just hate him in an unreasonable way, which doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense at all to me. Mm-hmm. I've known Louie since like 1990, 91. Very nice guy. I've been to Westside several times. I've done seminars at Westside. I believe I'm the only weightlifting coach to ever do that. And I like Louie, and he's a good guy. But he's a powerlifter, you know? I mean, maybe that's why weightlifters don't like him, or weightlifting coaches. I think it's kind of funny. I think a lot of weightlifters do like Louie, but weightlifting coaches hate him.
Yeah.
Hate him. I'm not sure why. Maybe they're insecure. I don't know. I mean, even Everett even read an article about that, like called "Stay in Your Lane." That was basically, I think, telling Louie to stay out of weightlifting. I mean, who the fuck is he to say that someone else can't have a view about weightlifting? You know, I don't know. It's stupid and crazy. I mean, Louie is a very smart guy, and a lot of his stuff doesn't all apply to powerlifting. He's got people that are sprinters, they're football players, that are all kinds of people that are listening to him that he's programming for, and he's doing good with. You know, and so I think that if we were in the USA winning a world championship as a team, having 3 or 4 gold medalists every Olympics, I kind of understand the attitude that we're so much better that somebody else should just shut up and not bother. They're not good enough or know enough or whatever to talk about weightlifting. But we're not. We're not. I mean, it's been a long time since somebody in the U.S. won a medal. A man won a medal. Might happen again. We have a couple women win medals, but no male has won one in the near past. It's been a long time since we had a world champion, a male world champion. So we don't really need to be that uppity as we know everything. I think we can very easily learn from other people. If there is somebody that is gets very good results in strength sport, like powerlifting, we should listen. I mean, obviously.
Sure. And as far as like reading what Louie's put out, is there a certain information that we should take and utilize, and then other information that we should kind of brush aside? Because I'm sure a lot of his methods are really useful for powerlifting, and they can get you strong. But then,
I think the biggest thing to look at is the exercises that he uses for the low intensity work. Mm-hmm. He does a lot of stuff like sled drags, you know, back work, glute ham raises. I think that is a very, very good addition to most training for most weightlifters. He does a huge amount of it, you know, a huge amount. And I'm not sure I do quite as much as Louie does, but I think that stuff has a lot of value. And weightlifters, historically, don't do that. We do the snatch and clean jerk and don't like to do anything else. Most lifters, most weightlifters, do not enough really high intensity work and not enough low intensity work. Mm-hmm. We're very comfortable doing 80% snatches, 75% clean jerks. We're not comfortable doing max effort stuff, like maxing out the squat, maxing out the good morning, just all very high intensity stuff. We don't like that as a group, which is dumb, very dumb. We also don't like real low intensity stuff, like sled drags. But both low and high have their value.
Mm-hmm.
In any training program, it's going to be much better to include both low intensity stuff and very high intensity stuff, and not just 80% snatches. Not just that.
Right.
So we kind of get into a box where we like to do what we like to do. We get in a rut, and do only that. We break out of that a little bit and do more high intensity stuff and more low intensity stuff.
I noticed that a lot of like beginning weightlifters have an issue keeping their hips down in the pole, and I would assume that's more like a quad or like coordination problem. So, what sort of exercises could they implement to kind of combat that issue? Because if we implement a lot of posterior chain work, I don't think that would necessarily help with quad development.
There's two things they have to do to become a good weightlifter.
Mm-hmm.
One, have to ingrain a good motor pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, you have to get stronger.
Okay.
They're two very, very different things. Very different. To ingrain a good motor pattern is just repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Repetition. To get stronger requires progression. Doing 1 kilo more this workout than you did last workout. But where a lot of people go wrong is they're always in that middle zone of going too heavy, not getting enough reps. So when you're a beginner, you need to use light enough weight on the clean pull or deadlift to ingrain, starting with your hips in the correct position in your motor patterns. So do it over and over again. Nothing else matters. Over and over and over and over. And eventually it'll take. Too many lifters that are young, that are beginners, want to put 5 kilos on a bar so bad they sacrifice the correct motor patterns to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. Do it correctly. I can say that until I'm blue in the face. Some people won't listen, but that's what you should do.
Sure.
Because there's the two getting strong and getting good at the right motor patterns, very different things.
Mm-hmm.
For getting strong, yes, you have to progress. So yes, every squat workout should be heavier than the last. You should always space it off what you did last time and do something heavier. Progression. But the motor pattern stuff doesn't require progression. Doesn't matter. You just have to do it and do it and do it and do it.
Okay.
And people get confused about that and try to use progression when they're trying to ingrain a motor pattern. They're two very different processes, very different, almost opposite in some ways. So start pulling with the bar or 40 kilos. Start your hips in the same position every time.
Mm-hmm.
For that, you have to have somebody watch you. So make sure my hips are in the same damn place for this rep as they were for the last rep.
Mm-hmm.
Then you do it with another 10 kilos in a bar. Again, make sure my hips are in the same damn place this rep as they were last rep. Eventually, motor patterns are like a dirty road, or muddy road. Okay? The first tire tracks on a muddy road, you're all over the place. As the ruts get deeper and deeper, your truck wants to just follow those ruts. You don't even have steer. Your truck's just going to go into ruts on its own almost. And so motor patterns are like a muddy road. They're very hard to develop that first motor pattern or that first rut down the muddy road. But after you've done it 10 times the same, it's very, very easy to switch to the same motor pattern. You almost can't break out. How many times have you seen a lifter who tried to start different and couldn't do it?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're trying to ingrain. We want the motor pattern to be so ingrained that even when you try to start different, you can't do it.
Okay, and so that was one common fault, kind of keeping the hips down in the pole. Is there anything else that you see from maybe beginners or intermediates that just happens over and over again?
Well, it's kind of a broken record here. What I'm talking about but I would say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people want to go too heavy when they shouldn't be going heavy, and not heavy enough when they should be going heavy. So it's kind of classic that I will watch beginners. I do seminars all the time, and a lot of people in seminars are beginners, and they have a weight they're comfortable with. You know, they've snatched 50, say, and they want to keep snatching 50. They love to do 50 for some reason. Try to get them to do 51, they'll argue with you. I can't do that. I've tried before. I can't do it. I've said, well, we're making a couple of changes. We try to do a couple things better. I said, maybe you can. Maybe you can do it. And they'll always argue. Then when you're going to try it, usually they make it. And we try to get 52. They'll put up a fight. Don't want to do it. Then, when they miss a rep, I'll say, okay, let's go back down to 30. They don't want to go down. They don't want to go down. But the trick of weightlifting is to go light enough you can do it correctly for most of the time. Then heavy enough to make progress. And people get comfortable in the middle with doing what they're comfortable with. Say 50 kilos. And what they should be doing is 30 kilos for, say, 20 singles on Monday, try to work up to 52 on Saturday. You know?
So if we have a beginner, say, performing a workout and they miss a snatch, like I see this a lot, like a beginner will miss a snatch and get really upset. Is there a certain number of misses and makes that you want per workout that's acceptable, and then some that's too much?
Well, I always say that if you make 80%, you're good. That makes sure that you are making more lifts. You have more lifts done right than bad. So if you make 7 out of 10, that's decent. That's okay. 7 good reps, 3 bad reps, you'll make progress over time. There's more repetitions with the good motor patterns than the bad motor patterns, right? 9 or 10, so that's good too. But it's almost borderline too light. If you're making, in a week, 95% of your reps, ought to be training heavier.
Okay.
The goal of the weightlifting is to get stronger, to lift bigger weights over your head. How are you going to reach that goal when you're always lifting within yourself?
Yeah.
You're making 100% of your lifts, you're lifting within yourself.
Right.
You got to branch out. You got to put more weight on a bar. That's why I always say 80% is pretty good, a rule of thumb. Because if you're making 100%, you're training too light. You're going to get better. Put some weight on a bar, do something you haven't done. Great. On the other hand, if you're only making 5 out of 10, you're doing just as many bad reps as good reps. That's not good either, because you won't make progress over time when it comes to technical ability.
Yeah, I think social media is kind of bad for this, because all you see is people making like huge lifts and you never see anyone missing. So they just assume you need to make every lift.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but I've put, you're right about that. I've put a lot of workouts of my lifters on, say, Facebook or whatever. It's funny, but if you see 2 misses, there's always a whole bunch of people that say, he shouldn't be trying that much. That was terrible. You know, that snatch it listed things that are wrong with that snatch. I'm like, yeah, the snatch was not perfect, but then again, he's training.
Right.
That's why we train, to get better. If it was perfect, he wouldn't have to train. If he'd already broken the world record with the perfect lift, he wouldn't be training. He would be retired, you know. But, you know, I mean, people are stupid, you know. People are stupid. I learn that more every day. But if you use the 8% rule, that's
okay.
A rule of thumb. It's pretty good. It's making too much, making too many lifts, it's almost as bad as making not enough. You know, you can short circuit your progress by not training hard enough, not training heavy enough.
Right.
Got to remember the goal of the weightlifting is to lift more weight. The goal of weightlifting is not to have technical perfection. It's to lift more weight.
Yeah.
Now, technical ability helps lift more weight, but it's not the goal. We just keep straight what the goal is,
Right. And a question I had recently, or I got recently from one of my athletes is, she was asking if she should move up a weight class. So can I get your insight on maybe how someone can pick the weight class that's appropriate for them, when they should move up or when they should move down?
Yeah, this is a difficult subject, especially with girls.
Mm-hmm.
They've got emotional ties to their body weight and food and everything. I don't know. It's got mystery to me. But I have always been able to adjust my body weight without a problem. I'm not emotionally tied to that number.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you go up, so I had several lifters go from 77 to 85. And all of them lifted more weight at 85. But it's taken a long time. I'll just say James Tatum is an example of this. I don't think his best total at 85 has yet been better as far as higher ranked than his best total at 77. It might be now. It might be now. But it was very close for a couple of years. But the fact is that usually when you go up a weight class, you'll get stronger as far as you'll lift more weight. Sometimes just lifting 1 or 2 kilos more, or 5 kilos more, even 5 or 10 kilos more. It's not enough to raise your total, raise your ranking. But I would say that the rule of thumb there is: did your lifts go up? Did they go up enough to rank you higher?
Mm-hmm.
If so, by all means, go up. If it didn't, go back down. I think jumping around weight classes is for some people kind of good. Because sometimes gaining 10 pounds, which is usually about what another weight class is a huge stimulus to gain more muscle.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you have to base whether weight class move is effective on the total.
Sure.
And on the ranking. To go up weight class and rank higher new weight class, great. That's wonderful. That's not the stories for most people, at least not at first. We have to base it on ranking. I know that a lot of people base it on, and maybe I do, like it's a rough estimate. James Tatum is like 5'9".
Mm-hmm.
He's too tall for 77. Of course he's too tall for 77. On the other hand, I believe his highest ranked meet was 77. Sometimes people don't follow the rules. Physical bodies are just different. There's no real right and wrong, because it's just the only right and wrong is the ranking.
Right. So
James Tatum is a tall lifter. Lifts more when he's heavier. I'm not sure if his ranking has really gone up that much by gaining weight.
Okay.
I think Travis Cooper is the opposite. He's a shorter lifter, 5'5" maybe. He'll never be above 77 and be good or be better than he was at 77. He might move down eventually, 6'9". Who knows?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. Have you ever seen any athletes move up and then get worse? Does that happen often?
I think the only way that would happen is if they just get fat.
Yeah.
if they get so fat, they get slow.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of another reason that it happened. I've seen athletes get worse because they got fatter. But usually those are super heavies that they just got sloppy fat and couldn't lift.
Sure. Okay.
But you would know if that's the case. You if somebody's just like got a huge roller on their stomach and they're stupidly fat. It's too fat to lift.
Right. Okay, and just moving on to this last little section I have, it's a little more away from like the actual technical aspects of lifting. So do you have a lifter that you coach that wasn't built to do well and wasn't very athletic but still succeeded, maybe because of like mindset, effort, or something like that?
Oh gosh, I'm searching my brain. I know there's a person or two that I should have thought about that when you first time you said that. I'm drawing a blank.
Okay.
I'm drawing a blank.
Do you have any athletes that really just gave their most in training, and that's kind of what set them apart?
I'm drawing a blank. I've had a lot of athletes that really train their ass off.
Yeah.
You know, really train their ass off. Train too hard. You know, I think the athlete that I probably most well known for coaching, Donnie Schenkel, is kind of under that. You know, now he's talented. You know, he's talented, but he had a problem with stopping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, always think of this is the most. I think the way to describe this best is that, you know, the workout we did ages ago when I still lived in Texas. He's tried a snatch. It was like a 170 snatch or something like that. He tried like 12 times. And on like 13th time, he rolled his ankle. And I had to ask him to stop. Like after the third one, I said, "You're not going to make that. Stop." He just wanted to stop. And that's Donnie in a nutshell. Donnie's the opposite of lazy. He just works and works and works. And he worked himself into the hospital, basically. Most of his injuries are the result of working and working and working until he should have stopped a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like now Donnie's like 35 or something. Donnie, I'm really amazed that he never made the Olympic team. You know, came very close, never quite made it. I really think that one of the things that stood in his way was too much work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he never learned to give it up, to just stop and go home. And that's a tough thing, you know, tough thing. Caleb Whitby, another athlete that was just tough. Nicest guy in the world, too. I mean, nicest guy in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Strong, tough, and wouldn't quit. He was a little more coachable than Donnie, you know. But he was amazingly strong. You know, Caleb Whitby is one of the strongest guys I've ever coached. You know. And a fantastic guy, too. I mean, he's just a very nice guy. But never, you know, he kind of stopped weightlifting when he could have gone on.
Mm-hmm.
And should have gone on, in my opinion. But he quit to go home and work on a family farm. Which, you know, if you want to do that for your life, I guess that's what you do.
I remember seeing some crazy lifts from him. Like he was cleaning like 200 or 205 towards the end of it.
Right. Yep. He done. I seem to remember he cleaned 210 from the blocks or something like that. He's a good lifter.
Yeah.
Very good lifter. He just didn't stick with it quite long enough. He was starting to get it at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Starting to get it. You know, sometimes people don't get it in a month, you know,
mm-hmm.
But he was starting to get it. And his strength was incredible. And he's one of the kids that I think he's on a very short list of people. You know, we have two guys now knocking on the door of a 220 at breaking the American record, 220 at 105.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Whitby wouldn't have had to quit to go home and work. I think he'd have been one that was also either already done it or be about to do it.
Wow.
He'd be in that group.
Wow. So the next question I have, outside of the improvements in physical attributes, what sort of impact do you think weightlifting has on like the emotional and kind of cognitive nature of a person? So like their character.
Weightlifting is one of these sports that I think is wonderful. It's like wrestling. Mm-hmm. You know, you only have yourself to blame. You know, it's you alone out on the bar. Mm-hmm. Whereas football or basketball, team sports, you can always blame someone else. And I think weightlifting is a great sport because it's individual. It's completely different from a team sport. It requires a level of character when you go out by yourself on a platform in front of an audience and make or miss a lift. That builds character, in my opinion, a lot more in team sports. And it builds facing up to the consequences of your action. When you do something in training you shouldn't do, say it's skip training, do an extra 10 pounds when you should have done, take 10 pounds off the bar when you should have done it. Everyone does those things. For some reason, they just want to go off the program and try a PR. For some reason, they're tired as hell. They don't want to do those pulls with 200 kilos. They want to do them with 150. Everyone does things like that. In weightlifting, those all come home to roost, because when something works or doesn't work, you don't have yourself to blame. So I think it builds a lot of character. The sport builds a lot of character because of that.
Okay, and that's an excellent answer, and I can't thank weightlifting enough for kind of developing me into the person that I am. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, I think the only sport that comes close to weightlifting is wrestling.
Yeah,
wrestling is very personal, kind of like boxing. When you get beaten in a wrestling or boxing match, you really got beat. That's a very personal feeling of having lost in combat to someone else. But then again, you also have that other person, your opponent. You can't do weightlifting or you can't do wrestling or boxing without an opponent. And the caliber of your opponent matters also. So a little different. But weightlifting, it's only you and the bar, and you're totally responsible for what you do. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I remember Donnie said something about like weightlifting, wrestling, and then foot races were like the three kind of primal sports. Yeah. So another question I have, what are some resources outside of weightlifting and strength training that you would recommend to our listeners to either help kind of develop their mindset or just kind of help them improve their performance in the gym?
Anything that promotes a self-reliant view of the world, a view of the world where you have to make your own decisions, live with the consequences, type of thing. I would say, and when you said Donnie, it made me think, because I got Donnie to read a book I'm going to recommend to you too. Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged.
Okay.
Donnie read that book, and I think that book really affected him. Changed the view of the world. And I recommend this to a lot of people, and it's good. It's a good book. It's kind of one of those things books that really makes you look at the world differently, and makes you very much think about self-reliance and excuses, things like that.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. And so the last question before we wrap up is, what is one thing that people can do each day to better their lives?
Besides lift weights?
Yeah.
Yeah. Read.
Excellent.
One of the things that has made Donnie and me very good friends, very good friends, even past weightlifting, is we both have a love of reading, a love of philosophy. Donnie and I could both read philosophy books written in the 1800s for hours and hours and hours. I love that stuff. That's how I like Ayn Rand. And Donnie does too. And I think that if you can read and expand your mind, it will make you a better lifter. I really do believe that. It's funny that a lot of good lifters are very intellectual. It's something a lot of people don't really realize about Donnie. He's very intellectual. And so, a lot of good lifters like that. I think that reading philosophy books in general, you can't go wrong. It's always a good thing. Whether you agree or disagree, it's going to teach you something about life and something about yourself.
Right.
You'll learn about yourself when you discover what you agree with and what you disagree with.
Yeah, and just so people know, I didn't pay you to kind of plug the philosophical part of this podcast.
No, you didn't. I didn't even know what the podcast was named until we were talking online. I didn't even think about that. It didn't even occur to me before I said that. But knowing about the world, knowing your place in the world, and understanding that is a huge boon to a lifter.
Right.
I mean, it just is.
Awesome. And just finishing up here.
Well, since this is called the Philosophical Weightlifter, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah, Philosophical Weightlifting.
Have you read Atlas Shrugged?
No, I have not. I really want to pick that up now that you recommended it.
You should. Ayn Rand has like 3 or 4 decent books. One is The Fountainhead. That's the one she wrote just before Atlas Shrugged. And that's a very big, long book. One of those like 1,400 page books, you know?
Yeah.
It's a long book. But that is, for her, that was kind of her warm up, you know? She wrote that to establish a point. And she felt that, I believe anyway, she felt that she didn't quite accomplish that with Fountainhead. She wrote Atlas Shrugged. And Atlas Shrugged is a very good book, in my opinion.
Okay.
So one everyone should read.
All right. I'll make sure I put a link in the podcast to Amazon so people can pick that book up if they want to read it. And then
if people do read it, email me and tell me how you like it.
Okay.
You know. So I it's funny. I introduced Chris LaRue to that book. 20 years ago, something like that. He's another one. He's a good weightlifter, American record holder, you know. And he's another one that said that book totally changed his life. Totally changed his life. Anyway.
All right, yeah, I'm very excited, and I really appreciate your time and you being on here. So I want to give you the opportunity to kind of plug your website, any products you have coming up. I know you have a camp coming up, your programming,
Yes.
all that stuff.
Well, yeah, I do have a camp coming up, January 3rd through January 13th, here in McPherson, Kansas. Twice a day training, and we will train real hard every day, morning and afternoon. And then, I had the first time I did this camp at Christmas, I had like 15 lifters come. About half of them were from Europe, and then about half were from the U.S. And we had a great time. Almost everyone PR'd every single workout. It's crazy. It's very crazy. One of these things that kind of like my thesis study. It's kind of the same situation. If you have a coach that doesn't limit you and just say, your best snatch is 100, try 101. Then you do the evening workout, say, well, try 102. The next day, let's try to max out again. Let's try 101. And you just do it every day and after day after day after day. You would think, and everyone thinks, if I do another workout that way, let's say I did yesterday, I'll be dead. I won't make another PR for the whole camp. That never happens. Never happens. So people think they couldn't do it again, and then they do it again. Next day, they think, I couldn't possibly do it again. They do it again. Next day, they think, I couldn't possibly, have no hope of doing it again. And then they do it again. So on and so forth. And it just kind of keeps happening. And at the end, you look back and say, I set 25 PRs in this camp. My snatch went up 12 kilos. My squat went up 6 kilos, So the camp it's a good camp. So I think we're going to have quite a few people. We still have several spots left. But very psyched about that camp. And then I also do the online training on Train Heroic. I've done some advertising for that. So you've probably seen a spot advertising for it. Just Pendlay, Pendlay WOD on Trainer Ruck. Got a 5-day-a-week program, a 3-day-a-week program. They're not too expensive, and it kind of, I use the things I'm talking about on the program to train. Pretty good basic program.
I noticed you have a button for individualized programming. Does that differ from the Pendlay WOD?
It is because the Pendlay WOD is a group program.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting the same program that all the other 80 people are getting who have signed up. And it's cheaper per person because of that.
Yeah.
Because you can coach, say, 80 people who all were using this workout, but it's a group program, so it's not individualized.
Yeah.
I also do a number of people, individualized program. So that means I write a program for you, just for you, not for you and 5 other people, but your own individual program. And that kind of allows me to do a little better job of specifically working on your weaknesses, and make a program that make you a better lifter. But I have had some success with this. I think I got several lifters at the American Open this year. I've got one that's coming to the World Championships from South Africa. So I kind of didn't really start out with the intention of coaching lifters in Africa, but I've got a lifter that made the world team from SA, and she's going to be at Anaheim, and I'm looking forward to that. Very much looking forward to that. She's a 58-kilo lifter, who is a fantastic lifter.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to snatch probably a little above 90, probably clean and jerk 118 maybe.
Wow.
Maybe more. I don't know. She's a good lifter.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize how cheap these options actually are compared to most online coaching programs.
No.
Like, these are very, very affordable. I'm not trying to get rich off of this. I just, the thing is, I do spend a fair amount of time doing the programming. Mm-hmm.
And if you're working and doing something, you have to get paid, or you just can't pay your bills. So,
right.
Yeah. It's funny that most of the lifters I've coached that I'm pretty much well known for, most of the lifters never pay me a dime.
Mm-hmm.
And so guys like Caleb Ward, I coached from the very first workout he did at age 12 all the way up to breaking the American record with 303 clean and jerk at age 19. I never paid me a dime.
Yeah.
And so I'm not in weightlifting for the money. I love weightlifting. It's a labor of love. I absolutely love it. But still, you got to buy groceries,
Right.
So.
And as far as your book, do you have a timeline for the release?
Well, I really thought it would be done last year, but it wasn't. But I'm definitely in a last stretch right now. I've got several pages to do that are very, very insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
Very insignificant. And so I would hope it'd be done very soon now.
Okay.
It's not going to be another year. It's going to be a couple of months, maybe.
Awesome.
It's just basically just editing right now.
Right.
We're to the point where all the pictures are in, everything's in. It's just editing, which takes super long. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so everything we just discussed can be found on stickthejerk.com.
Yes. Yes, it can.
So please go sign up for his programming, buy his products. He's a phenomenal coach, phenomenal person. And I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And it was very easy to kind of communicate with you and get you on here. So that's always nice.
Good. Thank you.
Yep. So thanks for listening, everyone. That's Coach Glenn Pendlay. I'm Joshua Gibson. And tune in next time.